Welcome to another episode of Arduino Made Easy. This is lesson 8, and we're going to go over the welder scene that I did on a previous video. So let's see how we did that. I'm Tom Kovichak, and this is Tom's Trains and Things. This channel was created to help other modelers who are in need of guidance in pursuing their dream of building a model railroad. We're going to put some animation in our model railroad today with this sketch of an arc welder and some building lights. And I showed you in a previous video how I did that. Now, I'm not going to take it apart and put it together because that's going to take a long time because we got 7 LEDs on there. And we have a sensor. Now this sensor is the same sensor that I used for the gate crossing. It's a IR sensor. I'm going to plug this in so you could see what this actually looks like. There we go. We'll actuate it. And you'll see the 4 LEDs come on right here. And once those 4 LEDs come on, then the arc welder will come on. Now, how I have it in the sketch, it'll go through the cycle 3 times and then it'll stop. So that's 2 times right there, and it'll go through there 1 more time and it'll shut off by itself. You could set this for how long you want it to stay on. You could set it for how short. You don't even have to have this sensor on here to even start it up. You could do it without the sensor and have it come on automatically as soon as you apply power to it. So I just wanted you to see the sequence of events on here. I have all these set at a 2-second delay. If you would like to see more videos like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, ding that bell so you can be notified whenever I have a new video coming out. Check out my playlist on the playlist page. I have a lot of playlists on there that are categorized for easy discovery. So check that out. Now let's get started with this sketch right now. So let's go over to here. Now you can see I have a few notes up here. I have this adapted for the Pro Mini because that's what I have on my layout. Simulates an arc welder and other lightings in the scene. Building lights are 7, 8, 10, and 11. And arc welder is pins 2, 3, and 4, where pin 3 is a PWM pin. That's because we're using an analog right to the glow pin. So let's start typing in here. Now we have the 4 LEDs for the building, so we're going to start with that, and let me do it this way here. All right, so we got integer LED, oops, oh yeah, that's all small, LED B1 equals 7, and T LED B2 equal 8, and T LED B3 equal 9, and T LED B4 equal 10. 7, 8, 9, 10? Is that how I do it? No, I got 7, 8, 10, 11. So, excuse me, so I've got to do it that way. 7, 8, 10, 11. I saved 5, 6, and 9. Those are the other PWM pins on a Pro Mini for a future project. I'm going to do something else on that later, so I left those pins empty for right now. We're going to do the 3 pins for the arc welder now. So, and TLED white is on pin 2. Integer LED GLOWPIN is on 3, and INT LED BLUE is on pin 4. Those are all the LEDs. Now we're going into the sensor and the information that we're going to need in the if statement. So the first one is the sensor that we're going to use, and we'll call that sensor 1, and we have that on A1. Now we're going to use something that we did in the gate crossing. We're going to use sequence started, and we'll start that off with a 0. We're going to do a wait, and this is for the delay between the building lights, and we're going to start that off with 1,000 milliseconds, which is 1 second, and then we'll have another variable in here, COUNT and INT weld count equal 3. Now this weld count 3, you could change that to whatever you want. If you want your welder to stay on longer than 3 cycles through the procedure, then you could change this number right here on the weld count. I kept it down low on this demonstration so it wouldn't take that long. You could see it go through the entire process and also shut off, so I left it at 3. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the pin modes. Okay, MOD. I'm going to copy a little bit here. Sensor 1's an input. LED 1. And what I'm going to do is copy this several times. That'll be 2, 3, and 4. So I just changed the number on there. 2, 3, and 4. Now I'll do it a couple more times. We're just going to have to change it to white, blue, and glow pin. Okay, so Control V. Oops. Okay, so LED, WHIT, white, blue, and the last one we just call glow pin. Now we have all that set up right there. We're going to go into the loop so we could see what's going on with that. And we're going to just put 3 procedures in there for right now. We're going to put the procedures in here now in the loop, and then create the procedures, and then write what we need to activate the procedures. So the first one is going to be the building lights. BUILDING. Let me see. LIGHTS. Oops. Capital. Building lights. Okay, we'll come down a couple, and we'll call the next one Welder. And the next one okay, so those are the 3 procedures we're going to do in there. Now, like I showed you in a previous lesson, we wrote what those procedures are outside of the loop. So we'll go down below the loop, and then we'll create those 3 procedures in here. The first procedure we're going to do is the building lights. So let's start with this. We'll do void building lights, and then we'll come down. We'll do our curly braces and bring that down a few. We're going to do an if statement in there, and we're going to test to see if the LED B1 is on or off. Okay, and we're going to say if digital read LED B1 is low, that means it's off, and digital read glow pin is low, that means that's off. Then we'll run this procedure. If either part of that is false, say like if the LED is already on, we don't need to run the procedure, so it'll just skip the procedure with the if statement. So if, and we'll have to do 2 of those, TALREA, digital read LED B1 is low. Put another parenthesis in there, and digital read glow pin is low. Then it's okay to start this procedure. So we have to put some curly braces in there for this, and then we'll put the conditions in there for what we want to see. So it's going to be digital write LED before is high. And then we're going to put the delay in there right now. And we're just going to say 2 seconds. So we're going to do times 2 since the delay is 1 second, 1,000 milliseconds. Now we're going to do the same thing with all the rest of them. So I'm just going to copy this right here. That's 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to start off with 4, then we're going to do 2, 3, and 1. That's the way I had it on my original sketch. So 3 and 1. And you could do it in any order that you want. It doesn't have to be this order here, whichever order that you want to do it in. But that's how I did it in mine. You got the if statement in there. If both of those are off, we're going to do whatever it says in these commands right here. We're going to turn on all 4 LEDs, and we're going to wait 2 seconds between each step on there, and at the end we're also going to wait 2 seconds before we do something else. Void WELDER, and then let's put some lines up here so we can see what we're doing, and we'll also put the curly braces in there now so we don't forget them. Okay, void welder. So what we want to do is we want to give it random on and off in there. So with that random on and off, we're going to do the count and then random and then the minimum and then the maximum. Now these figures could be changed around. We're going to start the count in here, so we're going to use a for statement, and we're going to say integer I equals 0. We say I is less than count, and then we're going to sequence through it. So what we're doing right there is we're taking the count and we're going to sequence through the count in between the random numbers that are generated from Arduino between 10 and 60. It's going to give us the on and offs for the LEDs. Curly brace in for that one for the for statement. Okay, now in the for statement we're going to do a digital write. For the LED white, and we're going to say high, and we'll have to put a parentheses and that right there, and we're going to put a delay in there, a random delay, and we'll say 60. And you could change this. Now we have to put 2 of those in there. Okay, let's move this, give us some more room here. Okay, so we have it turning on, so now we have to turn it back off. So what I'm going to do is just going to copy this right here. And I'm going to make this low. We're turning it off. And going to give this a different value. We're going to keep it off longer than we had it on, so we're giving it 200. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the blue, so what I'm going to do is come over here. We're going to change this to blue at high, and we're going to give this a delay of 10. We're going to, so it flickers at a different rate than the, and then we'll copy this, so all we have to do is change the low and stuff. Okay, so come over here, blue, change this to low, and change this to, we'll give this 100. Okay, let's move this, let's move these things up here. This is, now we're going to put another for statement in here for the glow, but we're going to do it differently. Okay, so we're going to do for integer, we're going to call this one J equal 50. And we could play around with figures on here to make it look however we want it to look. And do greater than 1. And J, and we're going to decrease it. So we're going to start at 50 and work our way down to 1. And so after that we need to put in curly braces for that one. Okay, and then we're going to do a right here analog right on the glow pin. And with a value of J, and we're going to delay that by 100. I have to set a delay for the entire procedure, so I'm going to do a delay random here also, and I'm going to set these to 800 and 2000, and then we have to put 2 closing braces in there, and then that right there. Okay, so there is the welder. Now what we have here on the welder sketch is, okay, we have the count random, 10 is the minimum and 60 is the high, and then for the integer 0, integer less than count, so we're going to take that and we're going to count up between 10 and 60 at one step at a time for the welder. And so in the digital right for the white, we're going to put a delay in there, a random of 60, and that's a maximum. That's not saying it's definitely 60. When you say random, it's when you have one figure in there, that is the maximum figure. If you have 2 figures in here like that, you have the first figure, which is minimum, and the second figure, which is maximum. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to step through the white and turn it on and off at those random times right there with these random times, so it's not all the same, and do the same thing with the blue but at a different rate than the white. And then on here for the glow pin, we're going to turn the glow pin on after the white and the blue is finished, and it's going to start up high, and it's going to start up high and then get dimmer as it goes down to 1 from 50. As it counts down from 50 to 1, it's going to get dimmer. So that's simulating the glow on the metal. When they bring the stick up off of it, it's glowing real bright, and as time goes by, it'll get dimmer, and that's exactly how a welder works. Come down here, we're going to do VOID and UTDOWN. I think that's how I Did it shut down? Yeah, with an underscore. Okay. So we're going to work on that right now. And all we have to do with this right here is just shut all the LEDs off. So let's just shut everything off here. And so this is another thing where we're going to put in the curly braces first. And then give us some room here, so we don't have to do it at the very bottom of the screen. Okay, so we have our beginning curly brace. So everything that's inside of that will be in the procedure for shutting it down. So we're going to have to do a digital write. LED, and we're just going to start from the beginning, B1, and we'll do a low and a semicolon. And so we're going to do this to all the LEDs. So I'm just going to copy this right here. Okay, 2, 3, 4, and then the 3 glow and the 3 other pins. Okay, so we'll just change this to 2, 3, 4, and then LED. This one will be white. This one will be blue. And this one will be glow pin. Oh, I could put an analog right on that. Okay. We put an analog right. Analog right on the glow pin, and we'll give that a value of 0 because we're using the analog values on the glow pin. And so now what we have to do is we'll go up here in the loop and play around with the loop. We want to start the loop up, and what we want to do in there is we want to read the sensor 1. We want to read this sensor right here, and we want to also see the sequence like we did with the crossing gate. We have a sequence and we're not started yet, so we want to put in an if statement about if this is low. Now you remember whenever it's not covered, it's high. So whenever you cover it, it goes low. So we're going to say whenever we cover that up and the sequence started is 0, the sequence hasn't started yet, then we're going to go through this if statement. And what we're going to do in the if statement is we're going to say we're going to change the sequence started to true, which is a 1. And then we're going to turn on the building lights. So let's do that right here. So we'll come up here and we'll write if, let me see, on these we have to put 2 digital digital read of sensor 1. Now we're going to read the digital read sensor 1. We have to put a parentheses there, equal, and we want to say low because that is what's happening in there at this time. Whenever we cover it up, it's going to go low. And where's the and okay, sequence sequence started, equal, okay, 0, 0. Okay, now put 2 parentheses in there. Now what's this saying is in here is whenever we cover up the sensor, And I got to change that to a parentheses. Okay, we cover up the sensor. And if the sensor is covered and sequence started is false, nothing has started yet, then we'll go through this statement right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in our curly brace, but we're going to put the other one in after here. Boom, right there. And we'll come back up here. And before we turn the building lights on, we're going to say sequence sequence started equal 1. Now what we did there is we changed the state of the sequence from not working to working. So now we're in the sequence and we're turning on the building lights. So that's where we are right now. So what do we want to do after that? We don't want to turn the welder on right now. We want to put in an if statement for the welder also. So we're going to have to do the same thing on the welder. We're going to have to read the sensor. And when the sensor is high, that means we're not over top of the sensor like that. So the sequence and the sequence already started. So whenever this is not covered and the sequence is already started, then we'll start the welder sequence. So we'll write that in like this. If digital write, or not digital write, digital read, we want to read the sensor. Sensor 1, put a parenthesis in there, and if the sensor is high, that means there's nothing over top of the sensor. Do one of these, and okay, sequence sequence started equal 1, and I see what I did over here. I didn't need that right there. Okay, now when I go back, there we go. That's it. All right, now we'll do this again. Put this in here. And we'll put the other one underneath the welder for the end of it. Okay, but before we get there, we want to increment how many times we want the welder to sequence before we shut everything down. Now, if you want this thing to stay on, you don't have to put this next line in there. If you want, once you trip it, or you don't even have to have the first if statement in there. If you want to have this on all the time, you could just forget about that first if statement and just put building lights, put welder, and then not put the shutdown procedure in there. But what I'm doing in here is I'm turning it on with a sensor. So if somebody walks up to it, it'll start going. Now, for this demonstration only, I have it going for 3 times. So, you know, it doesn't have to, we don't have to sit here and watch it for 5 minutes. But anyway, we're going to put in a for statement for the welder. And what we're going to say here is for, and here we go with all those parentheses again. Now this is where it gets tricky. Okay, we're going to do an integer. We're going to call this one X because we already have an I and a J and we don't want to confuse it, even though the other integers I and J are within the procedure itself. They're contained within that procedure and don't go outside that procedure. we're going to call this different anyway, just so nothing gets confused here. And we're going to say equal 1. Okay, if that's equal to 1 and x is less than or equal to, and welder count. We're going to do a welder count right there. Semicolon, and then x plus plus, and then close the parentheses, and then open up that and put another thing behind the welder, another curly brace for this or behind the welder. Now this is where it gets tricky, because you have multiple curly braces in here, so you have to make sure that your curly braces are in the right place. So the for statement just has the welder in there, and that's what we want. Once this second if statement is finished, it's going to step out and go to the next line, and that next line is a shutdown. So what we're going to do for that shutdown is we're going to change what the sequence is. So we're going to say sequence started, and we're going to change that back to 0 and put that there, and then shut down, and that's it. Now we're going to go through this, and hopefully I don't have any mistakes in here. And we got to clean this up a little bit. So let's see if this thing compiles. Okay, I'll click on that right there, and we'll sit and wait. If it's not doing anything and you don't see any error messages popping up, that means it's going through there and changing it into machine language. And there we go. It's done. It's done compiling. So it works. So let me plug this thing in, and it's already got the sketch in there, but void loop. If digital read sensor is low, whenever I cover up that sensor and sequence started equals 0, then it'll go through, it'll change sequence started to 1, and it'll open up the building lights. Okay, and then when that is finished, once the building lights are on and you have that last 2-second delay on there, it'll go through this next one. If digital read is high, nothing's over top of the sensor, and sequence started is true, then it'll go through the welder sequence, and the for statement in here where it says it's counting, and weld count is equal to 3 right here. So it'll count, it'll go through that procedure 3 times, and once it goes through that procedure 3 times, then it'll drop down over here. It'll change sequence started to false. That means nothing's happening, and it'll go through the shutdown procedure. So let's walk this through right now. So I'm putting my finger over top of it, and the building lights are starting to come on. Okay, so it's in the building lights. Once it's finished with that, it comes into here, and it counts out 3 cycles of that procedure. So it'll flash the white and the blue, and then the red will decrease. It'll do that 3 times, and then once it does that, it'll change the sequence started to false, a 0, and it'll shut everything off. Just like that. And now that's the procedure. I have the fritzing diagram in the beginning. I'll put it in the end also, just because I didn't show you how I hooked all this thing up at the beginning. So I'll have the code in there and everything else in there. Thank you for watching. I'll have another video up sometime with the DF player. I'm going to show you the sketch of the DF player. That's the next one. It's going to be up. That's a pretty simple sketch on there, but that I just wanted to show you how you can get to use that DF player for your sound effects on your layout. So we'll see you.